The PRD, or Products Requirement Doc, is the most important artifact that PMs create. PRDs align the team and make sure that everyone is moving in the same direction and solving the same problem. PRDs clearly spell out what is being built, who it's being built for, and why solving this problem is worthwhile. PRDs serve to inform the rest of the team, whether that's design, engineering, or marketing, or support, about the work that they will need to do. The best PRDs do a really good job explaining not just why things need to be built, but what are the right trade-offs to make. PRDs serve as a living document and will continue to evolve while the team is working and iterating on the problem. The PRD should be updated when decisions are made or when the team gets new information. Here's an example of a simple PRD template. The first section is background. You'll want to frame the problem and provide any information that can help people to understand the problem better. This can also include past efforts. The next section is the problem. You'll want to describe the opportunity and why it's something that should be solved. What's the benefit to the user? Then, in the goals section, you'll get more explicit about what success will look like. And in the success metrics section, you'll define how you'll measure that goal. The next section is for describing features and scope. This is where you'll define the requirements for what the product should do. This is the most important section that design and engineering will reference. And lastly, I found that it's super helpful to include mocks in the PRD to make sure that everyone ends up on the same page of what's being discussed. Make sure to work with your designer on this. The PRD is super important. I've seen teams struggle when PRDs don't exist or when PRDs are incomplete or not updated. You'll have a whole bunch of people trying to move the product in different directions. Oftentimes, this means that people might not be working towards the same goal. It doesn't work very well, and it looks something like this. Whereas, on the other hand, when you go through the process of writing a PRD, it aligns the team. It makes sure that everyone is on the same page and understands and is solving the same problem. Also make sure that everyone has the same goals. Then, the team will start to move in the same direction, and it looks something more like this. Anytime the team is working on solving a product problem, there should always be a PRD, even if it's a simple one-pager mini PRD. As the problem gets bigger and more complex, the PRD will also get longer to reflect that complexity. Most companies have their own templates for PRDs, which makes it easier to read, understand, and provide feedback on specific PRDs. But generally, all PRDs will do the following. They'll frame the problem and answer the question, why are we solving it? They'll outline the goals, both user goals, business goals, and success metrics. And they'll describe the requirements. What does the product do? Remember, as a PM, you're answering what the product does. Design and engineering have to figure out how the product does it. Additionally, there's also other components that can be helpful to include in PRDs, such as assumptions, things you think are true, but you're not quite sure, other options considered, and why they didn't make sense. This can be really helpful for when people who aren't as familiar with the product review the PRD. You also can label things as out of scope. This means things that you are explicitly deciding not to solve for and why. And as I mentioned, including UI mocks can also be helpful because it's often easier to communicate some ideas visually instead of through text. You also can include risks and mitigations. This section would talk about things that could go wrong and how you can prevent or minimize those bad things from happening. And lastly, PRDs can also include a support plan. What are the top issues users might run into, and how will we help them? The exact format of a PRD will vary based on what company you're at. But PRDs always frame the problem, outline the goals, and explain the required features. Keep in mind that each item on the roadmap should have its own PRD.